Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. I'm Dan. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how you doing, Dan?
Doing all right.
All right.
Doing all right. Getting into the swing of it's quickly becoming fall.
It is. Yes. I know we try to be evergreen on our episodes, but we keep going to it's fall, it's football season, it's all those things. And it's time to start thinking about planning for next year. Right.
Yeah. It just seems like everybody's there, right? You know, it's budget season, the leaves start falling and we start thinking about, you know, what are we trying to accomplish next year? What are we going to do? And, run through this season of getting our plans and our budgets approved. So we wanted to kind of take you guys through today some of how we approach that process. We've done this a lot with our clients, not to mention, for our own businesses. And there's a process we've been through. And I think previous times we've done episodes like this before where we're talking about like, hey, here's a template. Here's, here are the things, the sections of your strategic plan. And we want to take a little different tack on it this time.
I think part of what we wanted to do this time is more of a best practices approach. And because between your agency and mine, we work with so many banks and Dan, there are lots of commonalities in there that I think are really important and key for community financial institutions that are very, very different than regionals and nationals and things that I think we're going to go over some of these key goal areas today that are very much in common across community financial institutions that really help you to have insight into and not feel like so much of an island as you are an officer or C-suite person for your financial institution and looking at, okay, what is it that we want to focus on this and this or have some goals around this and what's everybody else in our industry doing? And I think sometimes that's just really helpful insights to have. So that's kind of why we wanted to dig out some of the most common ones today.
Yeah, well, and I think if we're doing planning, the first thing we always want to do is understand your goals, right? I mean, even prior to goals, right, is understand like what's going on, right? What are you trying to fix? What are you trying to improve on at your bank? And that pretty quickly leads to goals. And to say like, if we don't know where we're going, we don't know, we can't make a good plan to get there. Mm-hmm. So if we have our goals set first, we can start making plans to reach those goals. But in working with lots and lots of different banks, varying sizes, varying spots in the country, there's a few goals that almost all of them share, or at least, a lot of them share. If you're listening to this, I bet you have a couple of these on your list. So we thought we'd go through goal by goal and say, hey, if this is a goal of your institution, here's some ways to think about reaching it. Here's some ideas to get you started.
There you go. Well, so you and I, in planning for this episode, we pulled out what we feel like are the 5 key ones that are really going to serve a value, you guys as our listeners, to hear some discussion around and have some insight into today. So yeah, Dan, the first one of those is about growing deposits. And that's obviously a common one. And it's been really interesting over the last, 5-6 years? Rates were steady for so long. Interest rates were very low. Things were of that nature. And then we got into COVID period and interest rates started to change and all of that. So focus on what it really means to focus on having a goal of growing deposits kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Started to vary more.
Well, right. And that's, I think the first point with any of these goals is it's a goal for banks to grow deposits, but you have to think through, what does that mean? And this isn't something that the rest of your team may necessarily give you, right? I hear all the time, hey, the bank leadership says, hey, we really need to focus on deposits. It's all about deposits. Maybe you get some, like, I know last fall it was all like, let's grow CD deposits. They're the easiest to get. And
they're big hits.
Yeah, they're big hits. We know it's a short term, it'll work. So I think the first thing is with it, if you need to grow deposits, which you probably do, it's thinking about, like, what's the best path for your bank to do that? What is that underserved part of your community, right? Is there a niche? Some banks are going after doctors because they're near a major hospital. Some are going after, I don't know, there's a lot of property developers in a certain area. Like, what is that for you? How does that grow deposits break down? Because if you don't break it down, you're gonna, spin your wheels running ads or developing kind of generic marketing materials, going to a lot of parades that, maybe are things you do need to do, but aren't super, super targeted.
Dan, you and I talk in so many episodes, and one of our key platforms it is always around specializing, differentiating, all of those kind of things. And when we're talking about growing deposits, it's either appealing to someone in the midst of a pain point that would incentivize them to move deposits and deposit accounts to your institution, or it's something that is so relatable for them. It's those types of things. And you really can't do that saying, hey, we're the bank. You can't, well, we have 3 types of checking accounts for you. Okay, well, go way deeper than that. If you have, just to pick something out of the air, an account product that's great for retirees and a silver checking, kind of thing, then go even deeper than that. How are you really geared to do that? And most of all, how is it going to solve a pain point for your target audience? Whatever those may be, the examples you raised, or is it more of a longer term bet and you're going after students, and you're hitting your local college campuses, or whatever the case may be? What are those? And so being really intentional, not just saying we want to grow deposits, we want to open more accounts. So, and whatever those platforms and strategies are. So even in your digital advertising, right? And even in your social, is that as you're developing that messaging and what you're doing, well, how are you going to have those key audiences for you that you feel like will help you grow those deposits? How can they relate to you and you're solving problems for them?
Yeah, I was talking to a bank recently that, they had done some market research through, one of the database tools that's out there. And they figured out that, they had some branches in some high kind of affluent areas, but they figured out that the majority of the customers they had from those areas, they like analyzed their customers by zip code, and then cross-referenced it with this database tool. And they realized a lot of the customers, the affluent customers we are not their primary financial institution. Right. And so one of their strategic goals was chip away at that. Right. But here, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, it ultimately rolls up to a goal like growing deposits. But if your goal is to grow deposits, you're kind of grasping at straws and you're throwing money at ads and stuff like that. But if your goal is build brand loyalty, right, among existing customers, in affluent areas for whom we are not their PFI, it's way more specific and lets you develop much more specific messaging and kind of go at it from a much different angle. And we're going to talk about the next couple goals kind of can relate and help you grow deposits as well. But I want to get everybody's head wrapped around how do we make that goal more specific? And it can be multiple things, right? That could be one leg of the stool of growing deposits. And you could have other things, but you're going to do much better, having a few specific breakdowns of that grow deposit goal than just trying to run at grow deposits.
Well, and some of the ones that we brought up are or about new customer acquisition, and that is key and important. But yeah, you led right into our second big goal set, which is around cross selling and increasing cross sell. And we all know that is our best sales opportunities are with our current customers, right? And that's crucial. But it gets into communication is one of the key areas there. And how many community bank clients we have in multiple states, Dan, that historically have not even had a regular cadence of emails going to their customers. And they say, well, the only so many people open them. And I've made the point on previous episodes too, that if your email list and you build it up to 7,000 and you've got a 20% open rate, you're literally communicating by that one particular email with thousands of customers that weren't even hearing from you previously, and as statements have gone online, so you're not regularly mailing everyone, and all of these things, you've got to be more inventive about communications with your current customers. Yeah. Yes, that's lobby signage, but lobby traffic is down since COVID for pretty much everyone. So again, getting to more inventive ways of regular communication, as we're talking about cross-selling, Dan, is one of those key areas.
Yeah, I think it's it's the same idea of like, great, well, we have this opportunity to do cross-sell, but how are you breaking that down? Mm-hmm. And what's your biggest untapped group? Or if your bank is trying to, I don't know, go after, get mortgages from people who only have a checking account, or get checking accounts from people who only have a mortgage, mm-hmm. right? Like that starts to become more specific. But what a lot of banks do, or like I've gotten a few of these this week, so I'm on like different bank newsletter lists. We're recording this week after like the Fed rate just dropped a half point. And I got several emails out from banks that are just like, now is a great time to, refi. The rates just mm-hmm. dropped. Mm-hmm. And everybody's doing some level of that. But it's like, if you just blanket that out to everybody, you're going to annoy some people and you're not going to be relevant for others. And, you don't need a full like Salesforce system to do your segmentation, but a little bit of like, hey, we want to increase cross-sell. Well, let's pull a list of our one product customers and let's like think through, maybe let's think through like, we have a MMA offer for the highest balance customers. We have maybe we can use our third-party database tool, or we can look at mortgage rates they have, or break it down further by, these people started a mortgage in the last 24 months when rates were higher. Mm-hmm. And therefore, like, we know rates are low enough now for refi to be a valid thing. Mm-hmm. It's just thinking through, and again, you may end up with several legs of the stool here.
And you mentioned that data. You mentioned that data segmentation, and I know that's so much of what you and your team have focused around as well. But that is having specific conversations, not communicating with all your customers that, oh yeah, here's the rest of our menu. Right. It's not that. It's what is the opportunity there for your, like you said, for your mortgage customers? What specifically may fit them, or what's the incentive there? What's the solution for their pain points to also add a deposit product? Yeah. And vice versa, and all of those, and the whole segmentation across your customer base, and being able to have those specific conversations by digital ads, emails, mailers, all of the above, and so many different ways to communicate well with them by the data segments, as you mentioned.
Yeah, well, I think you made an important point in there too I think we've had an episode or two on this, but it's like, it's communicating with your customers in terms of their problems, not yours, right? Your problem is to increase cross-sell. Your problem is you want more deposits. That's not the customer's problem, right? There are customer mm-hmm. problems that will result in cross-sell, that will result in them bringing more deposits to you, but you have to think through your customer groups at the level where it starts to relate to problems. So that's really what you're trying to get to is with the changing interest rate environment, what opportunities and problems does that create for which customers? And that's who you want to be reaching out to.
Yep. So Dan, to look at our third goal here that we wanted to discuss, back a couple of months ago, I was presenting to a CEO forum as the opening kind of semi-keynote to one of the state banking association conferences, and room full of bank leaders. And at one point I asked, for a show of hands, if one of the primary goals for your bank is to attract younger customers, appeal to younger audiences and younger customers, I think almost every hand in the room went up. And so you and I have known that, but among community banks, that is a constant need. We hear it all the time that our customer base is aging and eventually they're going to age out. Maybe that's 5 years, maybe that's 20 years, but either way, that's a pretty scary prospect, isn't it?
Yeah.
It would be to me, I guess, unless you're on the cusp of retiring and you feel like it's going to be somebody else's problem at the bank. But for the bank as a whole to communicate with and appeal to younger audiences and have, and there are lots of things that fall under that masthead for that to be a very real possibility. I know social media comes to mind as a key way to communicate, as a bank in a relatable way with younger audiences, by your creative, by your imaging, by your, again, to your point, solving pain points. What are those? So the pain points for those audiences look like first-time homebuyer solutions, or what happens at life transitions when you're graduating college, or maybe moving somewhere, or you're getting married, or you're having a child, or you're all of these things that are part of being, I guess, the under 40 crowd, if you will. And so there typically are lots of life transitions there. So, Dan, what do you as the bank, offer when one of those life transitions is occurring that makes me want to go, oh, hey, that's where I need to go. Yeah. Bank,
what do you offer? And, how is the way that you offer it different? Right? Everybody offers a checking account, but is there a way that you offer it that can specifically serve that group? Right. Like, and this is where this is what's hard for a lot of community banks is like, there's no one way to like attract younger people, right? It's not like you put up a social media page and you're done. It's the whole gamut of the customer experience, from social media to, is your website updated? Can you do stuff online?
The app is crucial. Online banking is crucial. Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah,
yep.
And some of those things are massive investments to require a core conversion. That's a multi-year process. And so sometimes it's not that easy. But if you can, what you can always do without a core conversion is like speak that problem language of the younger customer in your area, right? So what do you know that's specific to your community about, let's call it the first-time home buyer, right? Is it easy to buy a first home in your area? Are you in a more rural area where it's like a little bit more affordable? Are you in a big city where there's just a lot of the big cities are just expensive, right? And that's fine. Maybe you offer lower rates, or you have a certain way of doing closing costs, or you have some you're part of a government program for first-time home buyers that there's a benefit. Like most banks I talk to have something, but not a lot of them are very good at talking about it, right? So because I think the tendency when you're planning or running ads is to say, come get your mortgage here. And but what you want to be doing is saying, hey, if you're a first-time home buyer, here's why you should be here. Hey, if you're 15 years into a 30-year mortgage and you want to refi, here's why you should come to us. It's different messaging, different problems.
Yeah.
If I think about reaching young customers, it's just be where they are, speak the language. And the technology and online banking and the ease of that is important, but it's not everything.
It's telling a relatable brand story here, right? For those of you listening to us, I'm holding my phone up to the camera. I mean, it's you've got to, and even obviously within that, that's an entire world unto itself. Is how are you telling that appealing brand story and being relatable and solving pain points? And those are things that are going to lead to incentivizing younger audiences for new account opening or loans, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest part's just starting a conversation, right? And that's a lot of banks and bank commercial lenders are used to thinking about this. Like it's a handshake that closes the deal, but just by having a website, just by having a social media presence doesn't mean people are going to come to you. You need to have a way to open the door and make that easy, and talking the problem language, talking about a specific issue that group is facing makes it a lot easier, because you're speaking to them in a way that another institution is not.
Dan, I know that our fourth goal point that we wanted to make today is jumping over to a little bit different category, but a key and crucial one for community banks, which is around community relationship, and realizing there are lots of things that are subsets of that. And that's not just being present at the barbecue contests and supporting local charities and all of it. It absolutely is those things, by the way, and the engagement points. But a lot of it also is what you are at your core as a community bank as a mission, and then living that out, and we know that this is one of the key differentiator areas from the big regional banks and especially the national banks. So some of the big nationals, especially if you're in a somewhat smaller rural area or part of your footprint is, if they have a branch there, that is for revenue purpose only. And if the revenue is not there, they will leave. They will up and leave. And we see that all the time. Whereas a community bank, you should be a pillar of the community and an ingrained, integral part of it, and engaged with local businesses and things that are rehabbing parts of town or anyway, just all of those things around true community relationship. That's one of the key strongholds to marketing and presence for community banks, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to keep up with this problem language metaphor, right? Because it really is just core to all this stuff is, think about, you can think about problem language for your community, right? Like what does the community need? How is the role that your bank plays in the community solving a problem for the community? Right. And, that's not a specific customer problem, but it's a lot of banks might lean on SBA statistics of, I'm going to get this wrong, but it's 2/3 of all SBA loans are done by community banks, something like that, where you can tell a story of, we helped we built this community center, we made the loan for this small business to open, that type of thing. And you're speaking the community problem language. You're helping the community better itself and grow. And, it's a differentiator from the big banks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of community banks just stop at, we're here for you, we're here for the community. Great. We know that, but that's so generic that, if you can make it more specific, turn it into a story, it resonates a lot more.
Yeah. And the bigs, their competitive focus is not necessarily going to be involvement in the chambers and membership at the Rotary clubs and all those other kind of things. And, that's as old as time for bankers to be involved in those types of things in the community, but as they should be. And to me, that's not something that has timed out. just because we're pushing technology and we're trying to appeal to younger audiences and we're trying to do all of these things, that entrenchment in the community and true partnership with the community by the kind of things that you're talking about, growing small businesses, doing all those kind of financing loans and homes in new community areas, suburbs or whatever, subdivisions rather, those, whatever it may be, there's so many different stories to tell there. And then using social platforms, maybe even case studies or those types of things on your website. You and I, Dan, have a community bank client in common that we've worked with for years that has I'm getting the wording wrong, but a business of the month. It's front and center on their website every month, and it changes out, and it's part of their social, story, and those types of things. Man, it doesn't take long looking at that bank to realize they are all about community.
Yep.
Because they carry it out that way in many others, and that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. That is growing roots and significant establishment in communities.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll see the big banks highlighting a customer, right? Right. You could probably go to a couple big bank websites and you'll find one that's like, here's Jane. Jane owns a coffee shop and is a proud, big bank customer for 30 years. But pretty much everybody going to that site doesn't know who Jane is. Right?
Nobody knows Jane. That's right.
And maybe Jane's a real person. Maybe Jane's a paid actress. I don't know. But
right.
As a community, what this joint customer or client of ours is doing is saying, like, look, we're in a community. There's 50 or 60 businesses in the community, right? So if you live there, you probably know them all.
Yep.
And here we're highlighting them. And then we've got multiple locations. We're highlighting this business across multiple locations, and maybe you don't live in this town and don't know them, but you live nearby and might come do business with them. But oh, you're highlighting Jim's restaurant. Like, I know Jim, and like so that's good for Jim's restaurant. It's good for the bank. It's good, and it endears you to customers. So yeah, it's taking that bank could have just as easily put a headline on their homepage. It's like, here for the community, and with a stock photo. And sorry if you're listening and that's what your website is, but but if it is, it's super easy to just take that down a level, right? And you can swap out a picture once a quarter, once a month, and you can highlight that. So you got to kind of show and tell stories versus just having a generic headline.
Well, the social media team on my agency team, Dan, one of the favorite things that we do for our community bank clients on their social platforms also are to lift up the local charities, whatever they may be, soup kitchens, home construction, pet shelters, whatever the case may be, but using our platforms as a bank to lift up those missions and what they are, and not talking about us as the bank. Let's talk about them. This soup kitchen that makes, an impact in the community, or a church group, or whatever, it may be. And just because we're promoting it, we're benefiting by association as the bank. But let's lift them up, and the community, or a new park, that the city is funding or something, all those kind of things. So it's helping tell those community stories, and oftentimes using our platforms to do that to the benefit of others. So imagine that as a business being selfless to the benefit of others, and we just happen to be associated with that, and the relationships often come from that, for sure.
Yep.
Well, Dan, I know we wouldn't have done our job well if in our top 5 here we had not included talking about loans as a category, and we realize that's a whole a whole category unto itself, and a lot of things there. But as you mentioned on the front of the episode, the Fed just announced a 0.5-point rate change. We've got a lot of things are going to be morphing here, in the coming days, and as we go into, we're entering Q4, says we're planning for Q5. For the next year. What is that going to look like? what are these goal sets around loan growth? And I know one of the ones pre-episode here that you and I had talked about as well is I even mentioned diversification of loan opportunities. And so many of our community banks are participating in special loan programs now. And, that's got tremendous potential for whole other audiences that, by the way, under the compliance umbrella, we can actually target low to mod income, audiences for this special program, those types of things. So it's a little bit different animal, but it's all the way from that direction to, Dan, some of the things that you were talking about with commercial loan growth. So the category of loans as a primary goal is an obvious one for banks. And there's some important points to be made under that umbrella, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like growing deposits, right? Like getting more loan leads. You have to break it down to those specifics. So if you're in a, and I think too, like I keep using this legs of the stool metaphor, right? To think about niching down, but I think with loans, it's also an area where you kind of have to stop. Like at some point, you don't need more legs on the stool. So if you're in if you're doing you're in one of these special loan programs, or your bank has a specialty in general, even if it's not like a defined program, focus on that. Your messages are going to break through a lot easier if you're talking, again, problem language. Right? Talking to a property developer about how your local decision making and your loan process means they get approvals faster, relates a lot more than just saying we offer mortgages for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, talking to first-time home buyers, right? They need different things than, people that are refining or people that are buying second, third, fourth homes. Like, so talk their language. But you've got to find those, when you start talking their language, when you start breaking that niche down, it becomes much more clear how to reach them, what to say when you get there. And, the trade-off is you have to do that. You may have to do that for 2 or 3 different niches. And that's a lot harder to do and more time consuming than just sending out an email to your full customer base saying, come get your mortgage.
and along with that is playing to your own strengths, as well. So that if you're an ag bank or you're a community bank and you really happen to be good at ag loans, then make sure you're positioning yourself to be the first conversation, that is had by local farmers, and they know that you're the one to come to, and they're going to have that first conversation with you. And as an example of many is key. Yeah, leaning into your strengths.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of just like, well, we're if we just focus on farmers, we're missing out on the property developers. But like, you're not gonna attract much attention from either if it's just come get your mortgage. So have that deep conversation, and a lot of banks are structured that way. Like you've got a commercial lender that focuses on ag because he is a farmer, or she came from she came from a farm credit bureau or something. I do see a lot of specialization in on the loan officer team, but as a marketer, right, what can you do to support that, right? Instead of just running a display ad with mortgages, can you target farmers? Can you target those types of things? Can you look for events? Go to the 4-H instead of just the community parade. You might be doing some level of that already, but it's like, how do you, even if it's a part of the business that gets done with handshakes, there's a way for you as a marketer to support that, right? Or as a bank leader to understand that marketing can shorten sales cycles. Marketing can open doors. Even if it doesn't replace the handshake for certain parts of your business.
Yep. Well, Dan, speaking of marketing, one of the reasons that you and I set out to do this podcast and the Bank Marketing Show in the first place is to be of value to our listeners and to people. And a few weeks back, we were contacted by, and I got to have a really cool conversation about the content from one of our episodes. And it was a banker from a bank that's in a state that we don't even have any bank clients. And, just really had some questions around, what did you guys mean by this? And just got to have some, and I don't know if there'll ever be any additional conversation from a business perspective with that, but I'm offering that up as an offer to all of our listeners here. All the things that we've covered today around these goals, Dan or I can dive in much, much deeper into the marketing, not just at an idea level, but the implementation level.
So an excruciating level of detail.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, so as you've listened to this episode and you're going into, into your planning, hey guys, tell me more about X, and whether this was about reaching younger audiences or deposit growth or anything that we've talked about as a primary goal today. We really want to invite you guys to reach out to us because we love having those conversations. We love being able to share best practices and talk to you guys about how to break apart and use your data better or whatever the case may be and see how everybody else is doing it and you don't feel like so much of an island. So bankmarketingshow.com is the show's website. Easy to contact us through the website there as well. Also checking out other episodes and lots of topics that we've covered is a great way to do it. So want to encourage everyone to reach out and connect.
Yeah. Happy to talk to anyone. Obviously, we have a whole show based on how much we love talking about marketing. So
that's right. That's right. Well, cool. Well, Dan, I know we also have some great guests lined up. Legal compliance, some industry leadership under social media compliance, even several other key things with some great industry leading guests that we've got coming up. So some exciting stuff. Looking forward to those with you, Dan.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.